It began like any ordinary weekend. A little girl and her grandfather heading into the woods for a camping trip they'd planned for months. Lily was just 9 years old, full of life and curiosity, and her grandfather Thomas adored her. But the two never returned, and for 7 long, punishing years, her mother Maurice Langford lived in limbo, trapped between hope and despair. The silence of the unknown slowly eroding her sanity. Investigators tried everything. Every trail grew cold. Every lead dissolved into nothing. Until the storm. A violent deluge had swept across northern California, overflowing rivers and ripping trees from their roots. In its aftermath, a maintenance worker spotted something wedged deep in the concrete maw of the Monticello Dam's infamous Glory Hole spillway. It was metallic, battered, but unmistakable. A trailer, aged and ghostly, clinging to the edge of oblivion. That one sighting would shatter the silence and drag the past, screaming, into the present. Maurice jolted awake, her heart hammering against her ribs like it was trying to escape her chest. For a moment she was caught between sleep and memory. Visions of Lily's golden hair catching the light, of her small hands grasping the edge of the camper door, of her father's rugged voice saying, "We'll be back before you know it, kiddo." The bedside clock glowed red. 4:45, the hour when her life had frozen. She sat up in the darkness, her breath uneven, brushing away damp strands of hair from her face. Her body felt like a prison of old pain. 7 years. 7 years of no closure, no truth, and every morning the dream returned like a curse. Then, a knock. Sharp, sudden. "At this hour?" She froze. Another knock, harder. A muffled voice. "Mrs. Langford? Maurice Langford?" Shaking, she wrapped herself in her robe and crept to the door. Through the peephole, the porch light revealed 2 figures. One in a dark suit, the other in a sheriff's uniform. Her fingers trembled against the locks. Sitting at her doorstep was Agent Jonah Kessler, FBI badge gleaming. Beside him stood Sheriff Andrea Brody, arms crossed, eyes heavy with something she didn't want to say. "I'm sorry to wake you," Kessler began. His tone held the gravity of someone who'd delivered too much bad news in his career. "We've been trying to reach you for the past hour." "My phone." Maurice turned to glance toward the kitchen. "I silenced it last night." "What's happened?" Sheriff Brody stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us. We found your father's camper." The words barely registered. "What is camper? Where?" "At Monticello Dam," Kessler said. "Inside the spillway. The Glory Hole." Maurice's mind reeled. She'd seen photos of the spillway before. A vast concrete drain, wide as a house, terrifying in its emptiness. I don't understand. How could it be in there?" "Someone put it there," Brody answered gently. "And it wasn't long ago. Emergency services are extracting it now. We need you to identify it and possibly items inside." Her knees nearly gave out. The years of waiting, of grief stitched into her bones made the moment surreal. Was this it? The end of not knowing? I need to get dressed." "Of course, but please, as quickly as you can." She moved like a ghost, her body on autopilot. Jeans, sweater, shoes, purse. Lock the door behind her. A black sedan waited, engine humming in her driveway like it had been there all along. As they pulled onto the silent road, Kessler glanced back at her. "I know this is overwhelming. We got the call at 2:00 a.m. A maintenance worker was checking the spillway post-storm and spotted something stuck in the flow." Maurice stared out the window, the storm still fresh in her mind, the windows rattling, rain hammering her roof like fists. But how? That thing must be, 70 feet across? How do you even get a camper into something like that? "That's what we're trying to piece together," Brody said from the front seat. "Whoever did this knew the area. They likely counted on the storm water to sweep it through the system, but it got stuck. Maurice whispered, "Lucky for us." Kessler nodded solemnly. The camper's size and angle wedged it. If it had shifted just a few inches, it might have disappeared forever. The road gave way to California's golden hills, and as dawn broke over the horizon, Maurice's thoughts turned inward. Memories of her father's quiet hands, Lily's laughter echoing across meadows. That camper had once been a symbol of joy. Now, it was a tombstone. As they arrived at the dam, the chaos was contained behind yellow police tape. Emergency lights flickered. A massive crane loomed near the spillway like a mechanical beast. The camper sat drenched in sunlight and dripping with lake water, its familiar curves dulled by rust and time. Maurice gasped. Even in its decay, it was unmistakably his. She could see the dent near the door, a childhood accident she'd never confessed to. Kessler gently helped her from the car. "Take your time." They were met by Dave Morrison, the cow extraction lead. "Getting that thing out was hell," he said, wiping his brow. "Hydraulics, precision. It was wedged at about 20 degrees, like someone reversed it right to the edge and let gravity do the rest." The forensics team had already swept through. "Mrs. Langford," Kessler said gently. "There were no human remains inside." Maurice nodded, her heart torn between grief and guilt. Was this hope or heartbreak? But then he motioned to a table where evidence bags lay. The moment she saw the red sweater, her legs faltered. The purple embroidery picked out by Lily herself glared back at her from beneath the plastic. That's Lily's." Kessler lifted another bag, a photo, faded but intact, her father and Lily standing in front of the camper, that red sweater, Lily's carefree hair, Thomas's proud arm around her. The sob tore from her chest before she could stop it. "And this?" Brody offered another bag. Inside, a digital camera. "My father didn't use those," Maurice whispered. "He always said digital had no soul." Fishing gear. Moldy blankets. Each item a page torn from her past. The tackle's his, and those blankets. My mother made that pattern. Kessler took a breath. "Mrs. Langford, we've discussed this before, but with this evidence, your father's camper, his belongings, items that belonged to Lily, we need to consider. He may have been involved in her disappearance." Maurice's eyes narrowed. He was 60 then. He's 67 now. How could he care for a child alone, hide for 7 years? "We've seen stranger things," Kessler replied softly. "We aren't saying it's certain, but we have to look at every possibility." A forensic tech approached, murmuring about DNA samples. The storm and water had likely destroyed most trace evidence. Yet Morris's eyes were fixed beyond the tape. News vans were arriving, cameras zooming in. The world would soon ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. And deep in her heart, one question screamed louder than all the rest. Where was Lily now? The cameras lined up like vultures drawn to a fresh carcass, their lenses trained on the battered airstream, now infamous for its sudden reappearance. The camper's extraction from the Monticello Dam's Glory Hole spillway was more than a local curiosity. It had become national news. Reporters jostled for position. Microphones clicked on. The chaos was deafening. Agent Kessler straightened his tie, his FBI badge catching the morning light. He turned to Maurice with a grave look. "I'll need to make a statement. Would you like to speak?" Maurice hesitated, her throat dry, her thoughts a storm. She saw her father's smile. How he'd once sat beside her for hours in that very camper, teaching Lily how to bait a hook. She remembered how gently he'd brushed Lily's hair, the bedtime stories, the way he showed up for every school play, every birthday. He was a constant when she couldn't be. She had entrusted him with the most precious part of her heart. When the cameras started rolling, Agent Kessler addressed them with precision. This morning, authorities recovered key evidence in the 2001 disappearance of Thomas Langford and his granddaughter Lily Langford. The airstream trailer recovered from Monticello Dam is being classified as a primary crime scene. Alongside evidence recovered earlier this week, we believe this development may lead to significant breakthroughs. A voice from the crowd shouted, "Is Thomas Langford now a suspect?" Kessler remained calm. "Mr. Langford remains a person of interest. We are exploring all possibilities." Then they turned to Maurice. Reporters surged forward, shoving microphones toward her face. She tried to speak, her voice quivering with emotion. "Dad, if you're watching, please come home. Please bring Lily back. Whatever happened, we can still be a family. We can work through it. Just come home." But the pressure became unbearable. The questions came fast, sharp, her vision blurred. Sheriff Brody placed a steadying hand on her shoulder and gently led her away. As they returned to the vehicle, Kessler briefed her in a low voice. "The camper's en route to our forensics lab in Medford. We'll go through everything carefully." Maurice watched as the tow truck pulled away, the trailer glinting dully in the sun, dripping with history and secrets. The shell of that camper had once echoed with laughter, bedtime songs, crackling campfires. Now it carried only the hollow ache of absence. The drive home stretched endlessly, the car winding through mountain passes, now bustling with travelers. Vacationers in RVs laughed in traffic beside them, unaware of the weight Maurice carried in her chest. She stared out the window, eyes locked on the horizon, trying to feel something beyond exhaustion. Mount Shasta passed like a dream, familiar signs blurred by her window. "Welcome to Jackson County. Crater Lake Scenic Route." Yet all she could see was Lily, in that red sweater, sealed in plastic, like evidence of innocence lost. By the time they reached the Ashland police station, the dashboard clock read 12:17 p.m. Her stomach twisted at the thought of food. Everything inside her was too raw. "I know you'd probably rather rest," Kessler said, holding the door for her, "but I like to review the original case file. Sometimes going back brings new clarity." She followed him into the stale, fluorescent-lit conference room. The smell of old coffee and dry erase markers clung to the walls like memories no one wanted to clean. Sheriff Brody spread a thick manila folder on the table. Kessler synced his laptop to the wall monitor. "August 18, 2001, he began. "You called 911 at 8:47 p.m. when your father and daughter didn't return." Maurice nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "They were supposed to be back by dinner. Dad never missed dinner, not with Lily." Brody continued. "Officers arrived at the Rogue River campsite around 11:15 p.m. It was unusually clean." Kessler clicked through photos. No debris, fire pit scrubbed, footprints brushed away. Forensics said it was the cleanest wilderness site they'd ever processed. "That's not him," Maurice whispered. "He wouldn't." Kessler held her gaze. "We don't want to believe it either, but look at this." He switched files. Same day, 2:15 p.m. Thomas Langford withdrew his entire savings, $400,000. Surveillance footage confirms it. There he was on screen. Thomas, calm at the teller window. Lily stood beside him, hand in his. Not afraid, just present. The bank teller remembered it. He said it was for a business investment, Brody added. Maurice stared. After the bank, he took her for ice cream. It was their tradition. Kessler's voice lowered. A disappearance, a spotless campsite, a massive cash withdrawal. It's a pattern. A phone rang. Brody answered, exchanged quick words, then handed it to Kessler. Forensics. Kessler listened, then stood. They accessed the camera's memory card. We're going down. The basement lab buzzed with activity, humming computers, LED lights casting clinical white shadows. A tech named Carlos met them. The camera took damage, he said, but the SD card held up. I recovered 27 photos. Images filled the screen. Lily, laughing, building sandcastles, roasting marshmallows. Her smile hadn't changed, just aged slightly. Her hair a little longer. She looked happily. He's off from 2005 and 2006, Carlos said. Then nothing. Maurice did the math. She would have been 13 or 14. But this isn't his camera, she murmured. Dad never touched digital. He said it had no soul. Carlos shrugged. This model was sold everywhere in 2004. He could have changed his mind. Kessler studied her. People adapt, Mrs. Langford. She didn't answer. Her father had refused to get cable, still used a rotary phone. Change wasn't his nature. Yet the images were undeniable. We need to keep all avenues open, Kessler said. Until we find proof otherwise, he remains the primary suspect. Morris nodded, numb. Understanding something wasn't the same as accepting it. You look pale, Brody noted gently. Let us drive you home. You need rest. We'll keep you informed. Back in the patrol car, Maurice leaned against the window. The sun carved bright lines across downtown Ashland. Children with ice cream cones, couples with shopping bags, laughter echoing in the warmth of the day. The world moved on, but her world stood still. As they pulled into her driveway, Brody turned to her. This may feel like more questions than answers, but after 7 years of silence, this is still forward. Maurice offered a tired smile. Thank you for everything. She stepped out into the quiet afternoon, wondering what would come next, and what other truths still waited, hidden beneath the surface. Maurice stood motionless on her porch, watching the patrol car vanish into the curve of the street. The quiet that followed was crushing, an echo of the silence that had ruled her home for 7 years. But now, that silence was different. It wasn't the emptiness of loss. It was tension, suspense. The house she had wandered through on autopilot for so long now thrummed with unspoken questions and flickering shadows of memory. Images flooded her thoughts. Lily's smiling face, preserved in grainy photographs. The camper rising like a ghost from the dam's depths, and her father's voice, still vivid in her memory, now cast in uncertainty. He had vanished with her daughter and $500,000 in cash. What kind of man does that? And what kind of mother doesn't see it coming? Sheriff Brody had called it progress, but Maurice stood there, clutching the cold mailbox key, wondering, progress toward what? Closure? Or another heartbreak? Inside the mailbox there were the usual mundane intrusions, bills, credit card offers, a gardening catalog she never subscribed to. But one envelope made her stop. It was white, unmarked, no return address, no stamp, her name written in soft, deliberate cursive across the front. The paper felt heavier than it should have. Not just a letter, there was something inside. Back in the kitchen, she laid the day's mail on the table, but couldn't take her eyes off the envelope. She turned it over slowly, fingertips tracing the handwriting. Her breath hitched. The precision of the letters, the gentle slant. It was hauntingly familiar. She tore it open. A single sheet of paper slid out, accompanied by something that clattered loudly on the table. A black cassette tape. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the note. The handwriting was neat, too neat. It had the unmistakable style of a child learning to write, but it had matured. The lines were more confident now. It looked like Lily's writing. Mom, I will see you again soon. Please listen to Grandpa. He is a kind person. He just wants what's best for me. If you don't listen to him, then we'll never meet again." Maurice read it again, then again. The words swam in front of her eyes. Ella. Lily's middle name. She used it sometimes in games. It was intimate, familiar. And yet this message was not. The tone felt wrong. Lily had always been trusting, gentle, eager to forgive. But this letter carried an edge, a warning, or worse, a manipulation. What had 7 years away done to her daughter? Maurice picked up the cassette. No label, no markings, just blank plastic. Her eyes darted across the living room. DVD player, CD stereo, an old record player, but no cassette deck. She'd gotten rid of it years ago. After the renovation, after the grief had swallowed her routine. But her father's house, he would have kept one. He kept everything. She didn't hesitate. The drive across town took her through the old neighborhoods of Ashland, timeless streets where life had continued while hers had stopped. She barely registered the passing homes, the children on bicycles, the old man trimming roses. Her father's house sat on a corner lot, unchanged. The porch sagged slightly. The paint had faded, but it was still his. She used her key. The lock turned like it always had. The air inside was heavy with dust and time. It smelled like forgotten things. Coffee, books, pipe smoke. Everything was frozen. Glasses still rested on the side table. A mug sat in the sink. The wall calendar still read August 2001. She found the stereo in the living room, an old component system, likely untouched since the day he left. She plugged it in. The red power light glowed. Her heart pounded as she slipped the cassette into place and pressed play. Static. Then, "Maurice, sweetheart, it's Dad." She gasped and sank to the couch, hand covering her mouth. That voice, a little slower, raspier, but utterly, heartbreakingly familiar. "I know you're confused, maybe angry. I don't blame you. But I need you to listen. Lily is safe. She's with me. She's loved. She's learning. I've raised her with the same love I gave you." Maurice leaned in. The audio was faint, like it had been recorded in a basement. The sentences were slow, calculated. "I had my reasons. Good ones. You'll understand. But for now, I need you to stop the police. Tell them you believe Lily and I are safe. Say you're moving on. If you do, we can be a family again. I'll explain everything. We can start fresh. Together." Then came the pause. Heavy breathing filled the speakers. When he spoke again, it chilled her. "But Maurice, if you bring this to the police, I'll know, and if that happens, you'll never see us again." "That's not a threat, sweetheart, just the truth." A final instruction. "Stay the night at my house, just one night. If you can show me you trust me, we'll take the next step." Silence. Maurice played the tape again and again, her mind racing. She knew that voice, the gentle cadence, the words he used, even the way he said, "Sweetheart." It was him, but was he still the man she'd known? She checked the windows, her body rigid with anxiety. The street was quiet. No one outside but Mrs. Chin and her ancient poodle. Still, she checked every door, every lock. Her instincts screamed that she was being watched. Upstairs, she searched his office. In the back of a desk drawer, she found it. A shoebox labeled tapes. Inside, dozens of cassettes. His old recordings, folk songs, Rotary Club speeches, birthday messages. She sat and listened, voice after voice, moment after moment, and she compared. The voice on the new tape was older, heavier, but it was him. Tears came, uninvited. She collapsed in his old armchair and wept. Her gaze drifted to the family photo on the mantel. Christmas morning, her mother beaming, Lily grinning in Thomas's arms. It was a snapshot of a life that once felt unbreakable. When the sobs faded, a thought struck her. The camera, the one found in the camper. If her father had really bought it, he'd have saved the box, the manual. He was obsessive about that. She searched the file cabinet. Manuals for everything, TV, coffee pot, even the electric razor, but no camera box. No receipt, no manual. Maybe he hadn't bought it. Maybe someone else had placed it there. Was this all a setup? The message on the tape echoed again. Trust me, stay the night, don't call the police. Every rational instinct said to call Agent Kessler. This was evidence. This could blow the case open. But what if he was telling the truth? What if calling the police meant losing Lily forever? Maurice stared at the stereo, paralyzed by fear and longing. Then, finally, she made her choice. She would stay just one night. She cleaned the house with mechanical determination, wiping shelves, scrubbing the sink, vacuuming years of dust. She made soup from dusty cans in the pantry, ate crackers with shaking hands. Outside, the town wound down for the night, porch lights blinking on, dogs barking in the distance. In here, it felt like time had stopped. By 9:00 p.m., she was barely upright. Her limbs ached, her mind throbbed. She climbed the stairs and lay in the guest room, still dressed. She couldn't bring herself to sleep in his bed. Sleep, when it came, was cruel. Dark water, empty campers, Lily's voice calling from somewhere she couldn't reach. When she woke again, it was 5:00 a.m., and the house was still, waiting. Maurice gasped awake in the dim hush of early morning, heart racing as reality came flooding back. She wasn't in her bed. This wasn't her house. The walls pressed in like strangers. Her father's house, once a place of comfort and childhood wonder, now felt like a trap. The room was bathed in a gray stillness. The wall clock, an old brass-framed relic, read 3:17, its hands unmoving, battery long dead. She reached for her phone on the nightstand. The screen glared. 5:02 a.m. The envelope was still there. She picked it up again, stared at the letter inside. Her eyes scanned every curve and cross of the handwriting, now etched in her mind. The neat, practiced script mimicked Lily's, but the coldness behind the words, "We'll never meet again," that wasn't her daughter. That wasn't the girl who once left hearts on post-it notes all over the fridge. No, someone had dictated that. It was a puppet's message, in a child's hand. And her father, why hadn't he written her directly? If he truly wanted reconciliation, why speak through Lily? Unless he hadn't been free to choose how. Maurice opened the bedside drawer, searching for tissues, and froze. There, coiled like a relic from a forgotten world, sat her father's old Sony Walkman. The same scratched silver plastic, the foam-covered headphones wrapped neatly around it. How many times had she seen him wander their street, lost in folk songs or war stories, humming along like time was his to command? She pressed eject, empty. No batteries either, just a crust of white corrosion. But she knew her father. He didn't toss things away. He preserved, maintained, cherished. In the kitchen, she dug through the cluttered junk drawer until she found a pack of AA batteries, cracked it open, and loaded them into the Walkman. The familiar hum. The click. It still worked. She tucked the Walkman and the cassette into her purse. A piece of her father. A voice from the void. And maybe a key. She washed her face in the bathroom. The scent of his aftershave still lingered like a ghost. She changed into her clothes from yesterday. The house seemed to hold its breath. She waited for a knock, a call, nothing came. The world outside was slowly waking, but nothing about this felt normal. No answers, no next step. So she left. Back on the quiet streets of Ashland, she passed sleeping homes and newspaper deliveries. A fog clung to the roads like memory. When she pulled into her driveway, she didn't get out. She sat, engine silent, gripping the steering wheel. The envelope and tape on the passenger seat stared back at her like artifacts of a parallel life. She pulled out the Walkman, put on the headphones. Her father's voice filled her ears, closer now, intimate, like he was in the seat beside her. "Maurice, sweetheart." She closed her eyes. The sound of him was unbearable. He spoke of safety, of love, of second chances. But something caught her ear, subtle, hidden behind his words. She rewound, listened again, and just as he said, "Wave your only chance goodbye," there it was. A different voice, male, younger. "It's goer." Her eyes flew open. Someone else had been there. Someone had cut the recording. The implications churned in her gut. This wasn't just a desperate father trying to reach out. Someone was controlling him, or worse, threatening him. Someone had orchestrated all this, the tape, the letter, the delay. Her father was 67 now, if still alive, vulnerable, easy to manipulate. Could he really care for a teenage girl on the run? Could he even care for himself? Her mind reeled. Had someone used him as a pawn? Had Lily been passed from one guardian to another like a secret too dangerous to keep? Maurice looked out the window with new fear. The dark pickup truck parked in the neighbor's driveway, where there was usually a white sedan. Tinted windows, no movement. Was it coincidence? She needed help. She needed confirmation. She needed someone she could trust. Mrs. Patterson was already outside, watering her roses with a neon green hose despite the hour. Maurice climbed from the car and called out, "Morning, Helen. Did you notice anything strange around my house yesterday?" Mrs. Patterson looked up. "No, dear. Everything all right? I saw the news about the camper." "Okay, just unsettled." "Oh, that truck next door came in late. Midnight, maybe? Their nephew from Portland, I think." Morris thanked her, but the anxiety gnawed. Back in her car, the weight of decision pressed down. The cassette, the letter, that second voice. All of it was evidence, but her father had warned her. "If you go to the police, I'll know." But how, unless someone was watching her now? She had no more time to hesitate. She started the engine, turned toward downtown and the police station. 10 minutes, that was all, until the black truck appeared in her rear view. Her heart seized. The same chrome grille, the same tinted glass. It stayed just close enough. Each turn she made, it matched. Left, right, lane change. They were following her. Her pulse surged. She gripped the wheel tighter, breathing sharp. 3 blocks from the station, the truck surged forward and veered sharply, hurting her toward a narrow dirt road she'd never noticed. It cut her off. She had no choice. Swerve or crash. She took the dirt road. Trees pressed in. Her tires thudded over uneven tracks. Finally, the truck stopped, angled across the path, blocking her escape. A woman stepped out. Mid-40s, dark ponytail, severe presence. In her hand, a folding knife. "Roll down your window," she ordered. Maurice didn't move. "I said roll it down, we need to talk." Maurice cracked it 2 inches. "Who are you? Where is my family?" The woman leaned close. "You don't know anything. You should have stayed in that house. You should have trusted the message. Now, you're going to do exactly what I say." "Out now." The blade flicked open, swift, practiced. Maurice obeyed. The woman zip-tied her wrists with brutal force. "Phone." Maurice gestured to her purse. The woman dumped it out, pocketed the phone and wallet. "I know your car, your plate, so we're taking it first." She forced Maurice into the passenger seat. No seatbelt, no compassion, just control. The town vanished behind them. The woman kept the knife on the center console. "Call your FBI contact," she said. "Tell him you're done. Say it like you mean it." Maurice hesitated. "I can't." "You can, and you will, or I swear I'll bury you in that girl." With shaking fingers, Maurice called. Kessler answered, alert. "Mrs. Langford?" She forced calm into her voice. "I just wanted to say, I'm pulling out of the investigation." Silence. "Excuse me? I got closure yesterday. I know now. My father took Lily, I believe. He loves her. I don't want to push it anymore. Mrs. Langford, this is a kidnapping case." "I know, but I need to tell you something." Her voice cracked, real pain bleeding through the lies. "My father, he's always struggled. After my mother died, something in him changed. He needed to care for someone again. He couldn't let go. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth. And Kessler would hear the difference. Would he understand? Would he come?" Agent Kessler's voice crackled with growing concern. "Mrs. Langford, are you safe? Are you in some kind of danger?" Before Maurice could answer, the woman beside her snatched the phone and, with calculated swiftness, ripped off the back cover. The battery hit the window before Maurice could stop her. In one motion, it was gone, tossed into the tall roadside grass. Unreachable. "Lo, this is stupid," the woman hissed. He was starting to catch on. They drove in heavy silence, the atmosphere inside the car coiled tight with tension. Outside, the landscape changed. Familiar neighborhoods gave way to open land, then pine-draped wilderness. They veered onto Highway 99, heading north. 3 hours later, they passed Monticello Dam, where the camper had been pulled from the earth's mouth just the day before. The sight twisted Maurice's stomach. It looked so ordinary now, just another piece of infrastructure, but it had swallowed her family whole. The woman caught her glancing. "I told him it was a stupid plan. The storm wouldn't be enough. The camper would get stuck. But no, he knows everything, old fool." Maurice's throat tightened. Was she talking about her father? Had Thomas Langford really planned this, worked with these people? They turned onto narrower and rougher roads, the trees growing thicker, the light dimmer. This wasn't a vacation hideout. This was a place people retreated to when they wanted to disappear. The car finally stopped in front of a run-down cottage cloaked in moss and shadow. "Stay here," the woman ordered, "and don't try anything." Maurice didn't respond. She was still zip-tied, her wrists aching, her hope dwindling. But her eyes were alert, tracking everything. Another car sat in the weeds, its engine running. The woman approached it, and a man stepped out. Not her father. He was lean, mid-50s, his face lined by sun and anger. His voice carried. "Colleen, what the hell have you done?" "You don't understand," the woman snapped. "They found the camper. I told you it was a bad plan. I just wanted to stop the investigation." The man roared, paced like a caged animal. "You used the recording? You sent a letter? Without me?" "I had the girl write it, just like we planned. Plan B." The slap echoed across the clearing. Colleen reeled, stunned. "You've ruined everything," Roy growled. "You're going to fix it. Get rid of her, now. I'm taking the girl and I'm gone." This whole thing was already falling apart. Maurice's heart thudded painfully. The girl, Lily, she was here, close, probably in that running car. Every part of her screamed, "Move. Now." Her hands were tied, but her feet were free. Sliding across the center console, she maneuvered into the driver's seat. The key was still in the ignition. Colleen's mistake. She twisted her body, elbowed the car into reverse, and slammed her foot on the gas. Through the windshield, she saw Roy and Colleen spin around in alarm. She shifted into drive and accelerated. They ran, but they ran the wrong way, straight into her path. The impact was brutal. Colleen hit the hood and slid off. Roy tumbled hard into the gravel. Blood streaked the glass. Maurice slammed the brakes, breath shallow, arms shaking violently. Both were still alive, groaning, injured, but stunned. He jammed the unlock button and shouldered the door open, stumbling toward Roy's car. Inside, there she was, slumped in the back seat, blonde hair across her face, taller now, but unmistakable. Really, Maurice sobbed with disbelief, knees buckling. But she didn't stop. She ran to the cottage door. Unlocked. The place smelled of rot and oil and loneliness. In the kitchen, she spotted a knife block. Using her elbow, she knocked a butcher knife to the floor and fell to her knees, working the blade against her zip tie. Sweat beaded on her forehead. The plastic bit into her skin, then slid. The blade sliced her palm. Blood spilled fast and hot. But the tie snapped. She grabbed the knife, cradling her injured hand against her shirt. An old rotary phone hung on the wall, ancient but maybe still alive. She dialed 911 with trembling fingers. 1 ring. 2. Through the window, Roy was moving again, limping toward his car, toward Lily. "Help," she screamed into the dangling receiver. "Mountain Cottage, Highway 99 past Monticello Dam, kidnapping, please." She dropped the phone and ran. Roy was steps from the car. Maurice didn't hesitate. She kicked the back of his leg with all the strength she had. He crumpled with a strangled yell. "Keys," she demanded, knife trembling in her bloody fist. "Give them to me, or I swear." Roy coughed, blood on his lips. "You'll stab me, you?" His laughter was raw, jagged. "You left her with him. What kind of mother does that?" Maurice stood her ground. "It was family. It was love. He took me camping. He took her. That was our tradition." "Tradition," he spat. "You handed her over." He lunged. The struggle was desperate and chaotic. He was stronger. He turned her arm, forcing the blade toward her. Her grip slipped, just as a car rolled around the bend. The rusty sedan. The driver slowed, saw them. "Help!" Maurice shouted. "Please!" But the car sped off, tires screeching, gone. The distraction gave Roy his chance. He drove the knife into her stomach. Maurice's scream caught in her throat. The pain was blinding, hot, then cold. She collapsed, gasping, pressing her hands to the wound. Through the haze, she saw Roy limp to his car. Lily. Colin had managed to stand, reaching for the passenger door. "Roy, wait." He shoved her. She hit the ground hard, wheezing. "You deal with your mess," he snarled. "I'm done with you." The tires spun against gravel. The engine growled, and Roy's car surged forward, 20 meters at most, before it all came crashing down. Sirens howled like ghosts through the forest, growing louder with each heartbeat. Flashing red and blue lights carved their way through the trees, illuminating the narrow road like a stage in a tragic finale. Police cruisers emerged from the shadows, surrounding Roy's car in a tight, unrelenting circle. Commands rang out. Urgent, firm, unmistakable. "Step out of the vehicle, hands where we can see them." Through her blurred, blood-darkened vision, Maurice saw Roy flinch. He froze, then slowly, reluctantly, opened the door. Officers swarmed, guns drawn. They pulled him from the car and pinned him to the gravel. The sound of handcuffs snapping shut was the sweetest sound Maurice had heard in 7 years. Behind her, Colleen's voice hissed from the dirt, venom in every syllable. "I hope you die, just like your father." The words were a new kind of wound, sharp, personal. They sank in deeper than the blade still lodged in her stomach. Thomas was dead. Her father, gone. The realization ripped through her like fire. But there was no time to grieve, no time to scream. Just as she began to slip into unconsciousness, Colleen crawled closer, her face twisted with fury, and shoved the knife deeper. Maurice gasped as a fresh surge of pain exploded in her core. The world fractured, everything blurred. But then, voices, rushing, yelling, footsteps pounding on gravel. Someone was calling for medics. Someone was yelling that help was coming. She tried to hold on to those words, but they felt distant, like echoes in a cave. And still, through all the chaos, all she could think was, Lily. Lily was still in the car, still so close, and yet again, just out of reach. The next thing Maurice knew was the sound, a soft, insistent beep, mechanical, steady. She felt anchored to the bed by invisible weights, her body a prison of pain. Her eyelids fluttered open to the sterile white of hospital light panels and ceiling tiles. A nurse entered, soft shoes squeaking. Her seafoam scrubs reminded Maurice of the ocean, something peaceful, something far away. "Welcome back," she said with gentle warmth. Maurice tried to speak, her throat rasped like sandpaper. "You're safe," the nurse assured, checking her monitors. "You're at Providence Medford Medical Center. You've been unconscious for 3 days, but you're out of danger now. We moved you here 30 hours ago when you started to stabilize." Maurice nodded, barely. "The wound," she began hoarsely. The nurse's smile faded slightly. "You lost a lot of blood, and I won't lie to you, the knife punctured your kidney. We had to remove it." Maurice closed her eyes, absorbing the news. "Calm, kidney," she murmured. "You'll be okay," the nurse said, squeezing her arm. "Many people live full lives with one. It just means more checkups, watching your diet. You're very lucky to be alive." Lucky? Morris didn't feel lucky. Not yet. But then she remembered. The car. The girl. The girl. In the car? She asked, barely a whisper. "I'll let the police explain," the nurse said gently. "They've been waiting." Half an hour later, Agent Kessler entered, followed by a new face, Detective Neuron. His suit was rumpled, his eyes tired, but his posture was sharp and ready. "Mrs. Langford," Kessler said, smiling faintly, "you gave us a scare. We're glad to see you awake." Maurice gave a dry, half-humored grin. "I feel like I got stabbed." "That's because you did," Neuron added. "But your 911 call saved your life." "It wasn't much, but we heard enough. Then a neighbor called in the fight. Our team responded within minutes." Kessler stepped closer. "Roy and Colleen Barron are in custody. They're facing multiple charges: kidnapping, attempted murder, and possibly more." Maurice's heart picked up, the beeping monitor tattling on her emotions. "The girl, was it?" Kessler nodded. "Yes. Lily was in Roy's vehicle. She's 15 now, but she's alive." Tears flooded her eyes. "Where is she? Is she okay?" "She spent one night under observation. Physically, she's fine. She's with Child Protective Services until you're cleared to take her home, but she's been asking for you, non-stop." Maurice's voice broke. "I need to see her." "Give me a second," Naran said, stepping into the hallway. While they waited, Maurice shared everything, her trembling voice slowly gaining power. The letter, the cassette, the fake message, Colleen's kidnapping, the final confrontation. Each word was both a confession and a purge. When she finished, Kessler nodded grimly. "We believe Roy murdered your father in 2001. Colleen confirmed parts of it in her interview. Your father never betrayed you. He withdrew the money because Roy threatened to kill Lily. He gave it up to protect her." Maurice wept again, silently this time. Kessler continued. "Roy had a daughter. She died in an accident 2 years earlier. When he saw Lily, she reminded him of her. That broke something inside him. Colleen, lost in grief, went along with the fantasy. They kept Lily for years, convincing her that no one cared, that she'd been sold. They beat her when she resisted, taught her to play along, to survive." Maurice's fists clenched against the hospital blanket. 2 days ago, they started destroying the last evidence, your father's belongings, but a hiker found them. That's what triggered all this. Nurin re-entered with a nod. Then, at the doorway, the CPS workers stepped aside, and a girl walked in. Marie's breath caught. Lily. Taller, pale, wary, but unmistakable. "Mom?" Her voice cracked, soft, unsure. Maurice held out her arms. Lily rushed into them. The IV tugged. The monitor beeped. But none of it mattered. They held each other. Alive. Together. "They made me think he sold me." "They made me think he sold me. But he didn't. He protected me." Maurice kissed her daughter's hair, her tears soaking into it. "He loved you more than anything. You survived, sweetheart. That's what he wanted. We're together again. We're going to be okay." Kessler stepped back, giving them space. "We'll search the property," he said quietly. "We'll bring Thomas home." "Thank you," Maurice whispered. Nurin added. Roy had PTSD. Colleen was delusional with grief. Their pain became a prison they pulled others into. But it's over now. Maurice looked down at her daughter's face, and for the first time in 7 years, felt something real and true. "We're going to get through this," she whispered. "We'll go home. Start over. Make new memories." Lily looked up. "I'd like that, Mom. I'd really like that." Sunlight poured through the window, warm and golden, casting light on 2 faces once thought lost to the darkness. No longer missing. Finally home.